morning, team. It is Tuesday, July 27th, and we've got another amazing summer day. Thank you for joining us. I'm Amy Kaur, and I'm joined by Kevin Van Eck, and we're live out of the Goose Island office. And I'm super excited because we are back with our agent interviews, and we've got two great people with us today. So let's get to it. Grab your coffee, your tea, your power smoothie, or your lemon juice, and let's jump into another episode of Coffee with Amy and Kevin.
Yes, good morning, Amy. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Amy, I don't know if anyone's drinking lemon juice, but that would be an exciting start to the day. Here we go. Like Amy mentioned, we've got agent interviews today. We've got two great highly experienced brokers with us, and we're going to talk about broker to broker relationships. We're going to talk about starting your business or restarting your business in new markets and a lot more. So thank you so much for joining us. Let's get started.
Thanks, Kevin. I think I have so much lemon in my water, it's become lemon juice. All right, so our first person that I'm so excited to introduce is Holly Connors. I've known Holly since I started at At Properties. She actually started with At Properties in 2002 out of the Fulton office with Mike and Thad. So I can only imagine the stories that she could share with us, but I don't think we have that much time today. But she also then pivoted and moved out to Arlington Heights in 2012. And since then has really been growing a phenomenal team out in the Arlington Heights and surrounding neighborhoods. So Holly, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for asking me.
Yes, good morning, Holly. Thank you so much for joining us. And also our second guest, Jay Maggio. Jay Maggio has been in the business since 2010. He joined At Properties in 2011 and has been with us since, with a tiny hiatus in the middle. But he is unique because he's lived in the suburbs since 2009, but was able to grow a really profitable, really growth-oriented business in the city. And so we're excited to learn more about this because he's also been now transitioning his business out to the suburbs a little bit more while still focusing on the city. Thanks so much for joining us today, Jay.
Good to be here.
All right, so we've got two great people, and I feel like we are going to have a great conversation this morning. So I wanted to start off and talk with both of you because similar to myself, you both started your business working in the city and then at some point made an intentional decision to grow your business in really the suburbs where you now live and are, interacting and are out all the time. So, but I know in making that move, there's sort of a mental mind shift that goes into it, but there's also some challenges, right? Because you're moving into a different market. So Holly, let's start with you. What were the challenges you faced in making that transition from working predominantly into the city and then now really in the suburban markets of Arlington Heights and those areas?
Thanks, Aim. It was really just restarting a whole brand new business. It was reinventing myself, starting over and with a whole new sphere and really just brand new. It was important to me to maintain as many of my city connections as I did. So really staying in touch with the city brokers that I have really good relationships with and really cultivating those relationships like you when we were working in those same tiny little desks in that little office. Keeping those relationships intact was really a big part of it, but just restarting fresh and new.
And probably making that mental commitment, right? I think so much of it is we kind of have to get our heads there first. And then, sometimes we're the ones that are in the way.
Yeah. And I think that was probably the hardest part is letting go of selling in the city and making a boundary line for myself. Where did I really want to focus and where did I really want to work? And what was the community that I was going to surround myself with? Those were really tough decisions. And being able to say no to something in River North when it no longer made sense for me to drive from Arlington Heights to River North, being able to say no to that and knowing that that decision was the best decision to keep my business moving to the suburbs.
God, using the word no. I love that. So Jay, I wanted to hear a little bit from you about your transition of, really being in the city and then making a conscious decision to kind of pivot into Hinsdale.
Sure. So I'm probably not as far along as Holly in terms of pulling that Band-Aid off and saying no to city business. But for me, a lot of it was like the anonymity of being in the city and working and then coming back to the burbs. And, I had my first kid right when I got my license. So there was this little bit of like going home and not talking real estate outside of, when I was downtown with clients. So that was probably the biggest challenge, was needing that push to be more I think, conscious of who you're talking to out here, and having those relationships, know that you're in real estate, and not just as a city broker, who I think most people identified me with, as to now a broker in the western suburbs, and is servicing both areas.
That's great. I think in moving to those new markets, one of the things that I've seen both of you do, and you were doing it when you were in the city as well and focused really in the city, is a great marketing campaign. And so, Holly, I know you have a Get Burbed branding. Jay, I know you've done a lot of branding work, including video. And so for the two of you, and let's start with you, Jay, what has been, in your mind, the most impactful when it came to the marketing campaigns that you've created to grow your business in these new markets?
I mean, I think it really is just being purposeful about, like I said, ripping that Band-Aid off and saying, look, I'm a suburban broker. I live in this community. I have a vested interest here. People know me. One of the reasons I came back was that push I needed to be vulnerable to, doing videos and marketing myself, being in magazines out here, newspapers, all that stuff. But 12 months in, it's come so full circle where you run into people that see your signs, see your face. And it's that reward, I think, at the end of the day, that it's working.
Yeah, I agree. It's the Band-Aid ripping is definitely a thing, and committing to the suburbs. That's a hard thing to do when you have a business in the city that's thriving, is to change and move. And I think your Band-Aid ripping analogy is really spot on, because you really have to commit to, and you used another word I think is really important, is community, is being vested in your community. So going back to your question, Kevin, about the marketing piece, we do the fair amount of marketing that most realtors do. We do the floor plans and the videos and the for the listings. But I think what makes us a little bit different is we market in our community as community members. So we support things that support kids. We support things that support health and wellness. We support things that support our community. So a lot of our marketing dollars are really spent on more blanket marketing than they are target marketing, so that we can really grasp all of the people in town. There isn't really a restaurant you can go to that doesn't have our coaster with our name on it. There isn't really a place that you can go where our name isn't somewhere in that restaurant or in that shopping center or wherever. And I think that that's important, because people see you on a regular basis. You go to the grocery store, people know who you are. It's kind of fun.
I will say that, you have done some pretty amazing kind of guerrilla marketing, because I've seen a lot of it, Holly. I think one time when we were interacting, I think I actually got a copy of one of those coasters. Oh. And from the outside, it looks like you run, and I think that you really do run an organized and focused team. Get Burbed.
I'm glad it looks like that from the outside.
And I love the name Get Burbed, because many of us have gotten burbed. But why did you initially decide to start a team? And I'd love to hear from you, the ways in which you manage your team successfully, and are also able to continue to manage your business.
Yeah, so that's a complicated question, because I didn't plan to have a team. That wasn't the plan. I truly got into real estate just to make enough money to feed myself. Like, that was kind of the gig. And now it's become this, in part. One of the agents on our team came to me about 4 or 5 years ago and said, can I just pick your brain? Can I sit down with you and just pick your brain? And at the time she was with another brokerage, and we had coffee. And halfway through that coffee, I went, she's really smart and she's sophisticated and she gets this industry. I think that I'd like to work with her. I'm going to recruit her right here, right now, and make a team out of just me and her. And that's how it happened. And then another broker from a totally different brokerage called me and said, I'm thinking about coming over. Can I work with you? And I said, of course. And so it just kind of happened. And then we needed to grow our support staff, and we needed to grow our marketing staff, and we needed an errand runner, and we needed all these things that needed to happen. And our growth by scale has been the trickiest part for us. But we've grown in a way organically, and I haven't really done any really recruiting in that way. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that does. And then Jay, I want to turn that to you a little bit. Because you currently don't have a team, right? But is it something you're considering? And if yes, why? If not, why not?
Well, probably on the opposite spectrum. And in fact, a lot of my marketing kind of focuses on that I'm not a team. And it's not like I have anything against teams, but I think one of the things out here in the Western Burbs is that so many brokers are on these colossal teams, and I see it when I go on showings and I see like not the head listing agent, and for me, I don't really envy having all of this crazy amounts of business that's probably unmanageable for one person. To Holly's point, I know what I need to, consider to be successful and what I want to make. So I like being able to work with a certain amount of clients that allows me to, have my hands in like every little crevice of the deal. And that's kind of the angle that I've taken. And even like some of the advertising that we've done is focused on that message, which is, you're working with me, you're not going to be passed off to, so-and-so. And that's probably how I will continue to do this until someone says otherwise.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what's so interesting about real estate, right? Because there's 100 different ways to be successful and many different paths, and you choose yours. And both of you, whether it's a team or not, and how you're marketing or not, where your market is or not, as always, you both have been able to be successful. Jay, I want to keep it on you for a second. You did, like I mentioned at the beginning, there was a brief hiatus elsewhere where you did leave at Properties.
Sure.
Could you tell us a little bit about that? But most importantly, what led you to come back? What was that path like?
So I think originally I left because I had never really gone to a brokerage on my own. I joined my initial brokerage and somebody helped me get in the business, and I had followed another person who was on a team briefly at Properties. And then it was kind of I'm doing good business. I want to know what it's like to negotiate my own deal and see what else is out there. But and part of it was that company I'd gone to had an office here in Hinsdale. It was close to home, and Ad hadn't at the time, but I remember Thad had reached out. It was probably early 2019, and just kind of stayed persistent, introduced me to Trisha Roberto, who's our managing broker. And I would say for the first time in the 10 years that I've done this, when I met with her, it was somebody that was just down to earth. It wasn't your typical, a lot of managing brokers there's a lot of like, sizzle, no steak. And there was a plan, and it was legitimate. It wasn't coaching from like, the stuff I need, like I know I need to do. It was, hey, you sell a lot of real estate. No one knows you sell a lot of real estate out here. Here's how we're going to do it. And, it's 13, 14 months in and it's working. And and it was that push you kind of need. And however you end up getting it, like as brokers, to get to that next tier in business, we need that push. So the other thing too, is like the technology, like I told somebody, like I probably just coming back to Properties save 10 to 15 hours a week just because of the systems here. And there's so many companies that say they've got great technology and it's the best, but it's really like everything that's tied together on our end through, the back end of Properties makes being an individual agent without a robust team very easily doable.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It makes it easy for us to manage a team too, because the systems are there. So you insert here and you end up here. It's really, the technology here is pretty spectacular.
I love hearing that because I know how hard Kevin works with the entire tech team to make sure that it is such a, an amazing platform to work off of. So I want to talk a little bit about relationships. And Jay, I love that you talked about Trisha, because you're right. She is really dialed into working on the right things with your business. And I know she's a big believer of cultivating relationships. And I wanted to talk about the idea that, you both had to move into your areas, again, Hinsdale and Arlington Heights, and really start developing new relationships with brokers out there. What are the top key things you guys do to make sure that you foster really great relationships with other brokers? And Holly, I'd love to hear from you first.
I'm accessible. So if any broker calls me from or anywhere, I'm pretty accessible. You can find me on my phone or Facebook or whatever. I answer a lot of questions from a lot of agents in and outside of and I think, there's a lot of agents that talk about this and they talk about it over and over and over again. But I think Thad's wife was probably the first person that I heard say this out loud at one of the seminars. And she said, look, we both want the deal to go. So just be nice to the other agent. Just be nice and it'll all work out. And so I have really tried to subscribe to that philosophy that, I'm representing my client, but there's a nice way to represent my client. You're representing your client. There's a nice way to do it. There's going to be road bumps. Sandra Frampton and I from the Barrington office just closed a deal last week. And at the walkthrough, it was an absolute hot mess, from beehives and standing water and backed up sewage. I mean, this was a disaster beyond control. And it was easy to navigate because we're just nice. So clearly it's going to work out. So when you go back to the relationship piece, I think as long as everybody's acting as a professional and working collectively and collaboratively, we'll all get to the finish line together. And I think that's the most crucial piece, is just be nice.
I think like losing the ego too is like the biggest thing. Like, it's funny because there's people that have been doing this forever and as if that actually means anything anymore. But I think it's just being transparent, communicating, and just losing the ego. Like, I don't really care anymore. Like, you can yell at me, I'll take that call, I'll listen to it, and then I'll just kind of process it. Because, to Holly's point, like, we are trying to get a deal done, but on the best, interests of our clients. And letting that ego slip into it and that emotion spill over, it's just, you're not serving your clients in the best when that gets to it. So I think it's just really just kind of becoming numb to all of the egos that are out here and just, being genuine.
Oh, I agree. Simple. Keep it simple.
It's very simple.
It's so simple.
But amazingly, it's impossible for 90% of agents to do.
Right.
It's just too easy.
The ones that say, I've been in the business for 800 years. You're like, okay, great. Good for you.
Yeah, good points. Getting rid of the ego and being kind, right? Being kind goes a long way. With that, with the relationships you've created, or maybe you generated them earlier on in your career, both of you are very well known for receiving broker to broker referrals. And so what is the way that you've been able to generate that? I understand how you're really being attractive to other brokers, but is there anything specific you've done to continue receiving those broker to broker referrals?
I think like now, like 5 or 6 years into getting a very heavy amount of broker referrals, I think it's just, it's the Buffini thanking the referral, thanking the referrer first, doing those things. And now it's just, I think it's, if you have a reputation of how you take care of your clients, and even like with a referral fee involved, you're doing just as much, if not more. I think people come to appreciate that. And I've had people I had an agent from the old Clybourne office call me last week, and he had put something in the app that I didn't see. And he said, "Hey, I forgot you totally live out there. And, I got all these people that were reaching out, but I knew you were there. And, can you help me? Would you pay me a referral fee?" And I mean, the 25, whatever the referral fee is, I think it's like the best value in the world, because for me, it's a new relationship and it's coming from a broker in the city usually. And it's somebody coming to the burbs who then grows my sphere so much exponentially. Like, it's much cheaper to acquire that relationship than it is to spend, thousands of dollars a month on postcards and magazines and ads that may or may not turn into a one-off listing that you never hear from again because they moved to Franklin, Tennessee, like, half of Hinsdale.
Yeah, that's right on. I mean, that referral fee is so much more valuable than any marketing you can do. So my favorite example is an agent from the city just called me last week and said, "Listen, my mom's selling her house in Arlington Heights. Can you just help me price it?" And I said, "Sure." She offered to pay me. And I said, no, it's no problem. I want it priced right because it benefits my town, right? Like, I don't want it underpriced or overpriced or what. It benefits me. So I went there. I spent an hour with her mother. I gave her some staging tips and left. The daughter called me 3 hours later and said, "Look, just take the deal. Pay me a small referral fee. You be in charge of the whole thing. My mom thinks you're the greatest." So it created a relationship like that without really a whole lot of effort. And she just asked me for some help and I was able to provide it, the next day. So that one listing has already talked to 3 other neighbors, and that's going to turn into 2 other listings in a neighborhood that I really don't do a ton of business in. So that 25% referral fee is actually going to benefit me by several other listings, and who knows what else from those signs and other interests. So that ability to know your market and help other brokers, city brokers, suburbs agents from other suburbs, that's all helpful, and just being kind.
I mean, I'll even give like a inside secret here. I've also run AdWorks campaigns towards brokers in the city. I mean, listen, it's like any sort of like, there's no secrets in this, like, but it's a legitimate thing. Like if you have a niche in the suburbs and you have those relationships, it's staying in front of you. I mean, it's top of mind.
Yeah, totally. I've
never seen yours, Holly.
We should talk about why.
Yeah, let's talk to Kevin later.
I haven't seen yours. No, maybe I have. That's the thing. Spending some effort on brokers. You think about like mortgage lenders. Where do they find their leads? And where do public accountants find their leads? And where do they all find their? And so you think of other businesses. If you're running a business, think about how other businesses are running their business, and you can take their idea and morph it into your own. Mortgage brokers call me every day. I'm sure, Jay, they call you nonstop. Can I have your business? Can I have your business? Can I have your business? Okay, well, why am I not calling brokers and getting their business? Why am I not working with them and being the best that I can be in my specific neck of the woods? I agree with you 100%. And then it spreads, right? So that one agent that gave you that referral is going to say to their desk mate or their next city person, hey, I need someone in Hinsdale or Clarendon Hills. They're going to say, call Jay. Call Jay. I did a deal with him. He paid me on time. It was great. My client's thrilled. Call Jay. And so that referral network grows organically that way too.
And I think it's just about having an abundance mindset, right? Just really recognizing where it is that you operate extremely well, and then knowing that there's others in these other markets, and you can build these really great networking and referral relationships, especially now that we've got Wisconsin, we've got, Detroit, we've got the Harbor Country, there's a lot of different ways for agents to benefit in these relationships. And I always say, focus on the give. If you are giving out opportunity, you will certainly get it in return, because you're developing really phenomenal and long-standing relationships. And both of your businesses have grown substantially, and I can see why. You are definitely relationship driven, and you focus on the right things. And both of you have been through different market cycles. You've worked in different markets, and you've really seen our industry change since you've both started. So to wrap up this conversation, I wanted to have you be able to point out two specific things or two specific actions that have driven your success in real estate, and that you would be willing to share with your colleagues. And Jay, I'd love for you to go first.
I mean, this is like the easiest thing in the world, but it's building a database, like having a sphere. I mean, I've had new agents in our office that everyone wants to get on Facebook and Instagram and post all these pretty pictures. I mean, like I have the most boring social media accounts. I've actually thought about like getting rid of them and seeing if I could sell just as much real estate without any social media presence. But it's just getting to the basics of who do you know, who trusts you on a human level, start with them, and then having a plan. Like you want to set open houses, great. You want to do, marketing, like pick the channels that you're going to go with and be consistent and purposeful with, and to grow your business, and just keep doing it. This is like really basic 33 touch stuff that's been going on for 12 years now. And, it pays the bills and a lot more because I'm, very consistent, and it's boring, but you still do it. And it just keeps growing and growing and growing.
I agree. The top two things for me would be constantly cultivating those relationships. And I think your database is referencing that, constantly cultivating those relationships and being that go-to person for when is garbage day over Memorial Day weekend to how much is my house worth. All of those things in between are incredibly impactful. I agree with you 100% on that. And constantly just being kind. I think that's just a simple thing, is a friendly smile and hello can go a really long way. One other thing that I think is really important. When I 100 years ago, when I worked directly for Thad, one thing he said to me when I told him I was going to go off on my own and no longer work for him directly was, he said, as long as you always remind people you're in real estate, you're in real estate, you're in real estate. And so I've always found a way in conversation, whether super softly or maybe a little harsher, figured out a way to let them know that I'm in real estate. And that always turns that conversation, because everybody has a vested interest in real estate. Everybody has to live somewhere. And then the question is always, how's the market? Market's always good for somebody. The market's always good for somebody. So I think those answer your question, those two things, cultivating those relationships and finding a way to talk about real estate.
We would love to continue this for another hour because I think there are a lot of takeaways here. You two have shared a ton. You have a ton of experience, right? You are those agents that have been in the business forever, but you don't say it because you don't have an ego, and you've been able to grow your business because you're kind and you have a database and you've been working your database with those relationships. So thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. Everyone who's joined us watching, thank you so much. Holly, Jay, we hope to see you soon.
Happy Tuesday.
I can let all my kids back in the house.
Everyone,
guys.
make it a great day. Thank you.
Bye, team. Make it a great Tuesday. We'll see you next week.